So we're here with several of the members of Negativland, Mark Hostler and John Leidecker. And rabid devotees of the band know its current configuration, but it's been through a lot of changes. A number of your members have sadly passed away.
Well, there's sort of it's always been, we've always been kind of vague about that. But yes, we've lost some key members, founding members and near founding members, Richard Lyons, Don Drake, Ian Allen, and people who are a huge part of the brain trust that makes, in our view, makes Negativland. There's kind of those of us who kind of are more involved in driving the whole thing forward, but there's a larger group of people that are very involved in creating the videos and the website and the graphic. And I think in our mind, they're all part of kind of the family of folks who are all part of making this thing be the thing that it is.
Yeah. In fact, as maybe not full-fledged members, but just auxiliary people or even people who assisted in putting together your most recent project, which includes, people like, Tom DeMuzio, Kyle Bruckman, Blechtem from Blechtem, Prairie Prince, and others. So,
also Ava Mendoza, Nava Dunkelman, and the two fine fellows from Matmos are all, a lot. We've had kind of hearkening back to our album Escape from Noise, where we had all kinds of interesting guest stars on that.
A project like this with so many participants, are you just kind of passing the master files around and people add stuff and send it back, or does it go in a round robin?
For Prairie, I went to his studio and just played him several tracks that were basically rhythm loops. And he just 6 or 7 improvised first takes. It's like being in the room with John Bonham or something. But most of the other people, it's internet contributions, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think Prairie also, because the kind of the groove was already there, I feel like his playing was then kind of playing around it in a very more ornamental, improvisational way, which to me just brought the tracks to life in this way that was kind of extraordinary. Yeah. None of us have that level of skill in terms of being able to play that way. And the other thing that was fun about it for me personally was that there's a track called Discernment on the album that True False. The World Will Decide is basically a sequel to True False. And on the track Discernment, the drumming that Prairie did was so inspirational to I think to John in particular, that he decided to erase all of the music we had made completely. And then we went in and wrote new parts, and I actually got to kind of play along with Prairie by in a digitally delayed fashion, and compose the music for that track was written around the drumming. But we only arrived at that drumming because he was playing to some initial music that we had made. So that was I really love that that's the process, and I feel like that's part of why they all lock together in this really neat way that I don't think we could have ever come up with if we'd written it in a more traditional order.
And it's true that that's one of the most kind of driving, danceable tracks on the album, and maybe in the Negativland canon overall. But my question is, I guess, I sort of assumed that almost everything, if not everything, was in this age of COVID, was done through internet exchange. But this process is interesting for me. Sometimes people pass things around in a circle.
Oh, the record was finished December 2019. True False was finished before that, but this is all in the can before the world we now know decided. There wasn't that much back and forth. It was contributions, and then we edited mercilessly to our whim.
There is a tremendous amount of editing that's apparent, and this is true in a lot of cases with your work, but a kind of torrent or barrage of elements hitting you from all sides. It's sort of like watching an early episode of Arrested Development or something like that. If you close your eyes or ears for a second, you miss an eternity, and just focusing in, if you give your attention to any one element, you might miss the things that come in the seconds to follow. So it's definitely, as much as any of your works, it's definitely a thing that holds up and almost requires repeated listening.
I think that's something Negativland has always aimed to do, is that we hope it works if people give it a cursory listen, but there's enough layers of sonically, but also conceptually, and there's all kinds of ways the True False and The World Will Decide are actually have Easter eggs and speak to each other. There's a dialogue across both albums that's very intricately thought out, but you have to spend time with them and really want to dig to find it. But if you do, it's there.
The thing, I really like the moment at which language melts back into music, like the level at which your rational brain almost gives up. And I love musicians who have, I thought about Robert Ashley a lot on this record, and the way that sometimes he pronounces each word antithetically to how the word is normally pronounced to convey meaning, in such a way that you almost give up what he's trying to say, what the libretto actually is. And you can also do that with density. If you arrange the music on the rhythmic grid precisely enough so that there's sort of like the built-in melodies with language sort of have this rhythmical underpinning, but they're coming at you so quickly that you give up trying to hear them, and instead you just feel them. But at that moment, you still actually are hearing them. You still get them all. It's the ideal state to be in. And that density is not sort of like it's not just an information overload density. It's trying to just overcome the normal filters that we have when trying to listen to language. And I'm also just trying to get back to that ideal state. I love listening to music in foreign languages because at first you're freed from the responsibility of figuring out what it is that they're saying. But inevitably, you figure out, if you love the music, you look it up online, or you just figure it out. You perceive, you figure out what your favorite songs were trying to actually say eventually. So.
Or you develop your own alternative narrative to what they're saying.
Yes.
That can be the case also. This gets us to the whole issue of what is meaning, the meaning of meaning. It's a question that you're asking sometimes in your work.
I think we're always trying for this very complex, delicate dance between, obviously the albums are very conceptual. The tracks are very much about specific things, and yet there's all these voices that never knew they were going to be in proximity to each other, that we've made them have a conversation. And the ultimate meaning is being put together by your brain as you hear it. And there's something about that has remained after all these years of doing this really interesting, because there's a depth to that you can just keep playing with. And in particular on these two records, John's incredible skills with Pro Tools came to bear in a way where we could take phrases, and then John would be inserting, I don't know, a tenth of a second, a quarter of a second, just enough between words in a sentence so that the cadence of the word fell on the rhythm of the piece, or that the cadence of it fell on where the music turned, or where we hit another 4/4 bars or something. And so there's sort of a finessing that most listeners won't literally know we did. But when I hear it, having done this for 40 years, I can hear that there's an even greater degree of musicality to how the language is all placed into the mix than anything I think we've ever done. And I mean, that's all this guy, his abilities there, just amazing.
In doing that, you never have the sense that things are, overly quantized, or it's like forcibly, you're not forcing it to the beat. It's so natural and so still speech-like. It's a wonderful kind of illusion that you've created.
There are times where we pushed it too far and the language locked into the grid so much that we realized we had to back off. Like it wasn't language anymore. But so much of meaning is contained in prosody, like our rational, conscious brains, like we think it's language, and yet almost all of the actual meaning we extract from the music in the words. And so a lot of this record, it's just supposed to make you think about those things. And even if a lot of the editing is invisible, at all times you're supposed to be questioning whether or not any of the voices in the mix actually said those things. Some of the things they're saying are so unlikely and so evil or preposterous or just corporate, or, some of the business models of Facebook or Google, when, people like Eric Schmidt actually discuss these things, we almost want you to suspect that they've been edited to say those things, even though we rarely had to edit the Google people.
Negativland, historically, we have edited people to make them say things they didn't say, but we don't actually do it that much, because I think part of what draws us to these found elements is that it's what they actually did say, and that's part of why we're drawn to it. I think we're always drawn to these voices we appropriate by, obviously it's the language, it's the words they're using, but it's also always about the cadence, the timbre, the quality of the voice. So there's a pure sonic element to our selecting things. It's always a mix of both. There's also our own kind of inner compass on our sense of humor and a sense of Dada silliness, is that I think we always put in little funny time bombs or things dropped into the tracks of things that don't quite make any sense, and they're there because I think they're there because they've just made us laugh.
You mentioned that this is the new album is a kind of companion piece to True False, but I think that both of these releases deal with the whole issue of truth and what is truth in a world of alternative facts, and both of them deal also with media and the role that media plays in promulgating alternative truths. It's very much consistent in a way that, your work has always dealt with media to one extent or another. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Or would you disagree?
Yeah.
There's something else that this release deals with. It sort of rears its head as we get towards the end, and it comes from a band that's had 3 of its members pass away. On some level, it seems to be dealing with the issue of death.
Glad you picked that up.
Yeah.
It's woven throughout 2 albums, rather, I think, more than we even realized when we were making it. Would you say, John?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think we picked up on it pretty quickly. It was more than a sub-theme.
Yeah, it definitely leaked in there. And I certainly remember being aware as things were changing, particularly when we hit our current COVID moment and with what was happening with, in our country politically. I was been very curious and eager to see how what we made would play out and be perceived once it finally came out. And how is that going to impact the way people see it? And I do think there's things on the record that actually sound as if we did make them just this summer, and that's just luck or something prescient, I don't know, or our antenna were out. I mean, who knows?
Don wanted us to keep going afterwards. Like, he wanted the radio show to keep going. He wanted the work to outlive him. Mm-hmm. And that's just sort of one of the things that always comes up with composition, like the Western canon. I think very quickly, like, Bach still considered himself just a craftsman. But, by the time we get to Beethoven, we get people who realize that the media upon which they work is going to allow them to outlive their own mortal existence. Mm-hmm. And so Don had 25 years worth of stuff that he made for this weekly radio show. He was constantly grinding out content. And about 20 years ago, he started
34 years.
Well, 40 years total, but like more frequently than not, the last 25 years, the subjects were artificial intelligence and brain science and, the increasing impact of technology on ourselves.
So were these notes in a notepad, or you had a big box of cassette tapes that Don had willed? You use some of these as material for this album.
Yes.
Going back to when the radio show started in 1981, whenever we were doing our weekly radio show Over the Edge, we'd have a theme that week, and we would all bring in material that we collected that related to the theme. But in this case, he had all these little clips and voices and things all edited up, ready to go. And he would use them improvisationally, but he had it all pre-made. When the shows were over, he'd store them in our archive, and they're all labeled and all that. And so after Don died, we realized we had this enormous amount of material, beautiful gems that needed to find a home, and also were very much the voice in which he often sort of spoke was the things he chose to appropriate, not the things I would choose or John or anyone else in the group. In addition to that, there was a ton of cassettes, just of real raw stuff, unedited, that John ended up with that too.
The ingredients he used to improvise the weekly radio show and come up with 3 hours of content a week. We had both the shows and we had the source materials. And the subject frequently was artificial intelligence. So we knew what the record was going to be about.
Was it fun going through all those materials, John, or was it an arduous task? How did you feel? Because it seemed like a massive undertaking, the way you described it.
Well, there was so much. In some ways, you edit like you improvise, right? And I mean, I think you know yourself, like the current tools, electronic music tools, allow you to edit in real time in front of an audience. And that's what the radio show was. It was real-time editing, stopping and starting tapes, recombining them like it was a live mix collage. So when you have that much material and it's all good, you can flip into a state of mind where you are editing while composing in an improvisatory way. Like there was so much good stuff. It was literally like, just pick out a cassette. If you need a voice for this next part, go to Don's magic box, put it into the cassette machine, press play more than often.
And I'm sure a lot of people know, because it's sort of an infamous aspect, but not only did you sprinkle John's materials throughout these albums, but you actually distributed his ashes to people who bought your album.
Yes, we sprinkled Don over the world.
And was that his idea?
I think our press release said, we're pretty sure he would have wanted it this way.
The project that we had completed just before he died was called The Chopping Channel. And this particular episode that had been edited down and we were going to put out as a CD, literally, among other things, dealt with the commodification of the human body and fluids, and so conceptually, I mean, we wouldn't have put John's ashes with any project we made. It was this particular project, which was the one that we were about to put out, that was finished before he died, literally was the perfect place to take Don's body and put it into the work. And we all know Don well enough that we felt, I think, very sure that he would have said, yes, guys, that's a great idea. Please do that.
And we tried to be very clear in the marketing.
Did you have to check to see if there were any legal constraints about mailing human remains?
Yes. Well, we because of things we've gone through over the years with various legal adventures, we do have a couple of friends in the law world who will give us, free advice. And we investigated that to make sure. The thing is that when we actually mailed out all of the CDs with the ashes, we just sent them normal media mail rate postage. That was very not legal to do, but nothing happened. We got away with that. It was fine. Yeah.
It was a contract with the fans.
Good. Yeah. This new album also is remarkable because of the number of tracks seem to adhere to, even though they have all these elements and so on, they adhere to, at a certain level, to song form. They are kind of songs.
That's what we call them too.
Would More Data be one of those?
Yes, that was one of the hits.
Let's look at that now.
More data, more truth. All of the data,
and
all of the truth, right?
As more data becomes available, then we can start doing more with it. And as we do more with it, that creates more data. And And as more data becomes available, then we can start doing more with it.
Predict.
And as we do more with it,
me.
That creates more data.
My algorithmic me.
And
psychological assessment.
And
computational inference.
And
my algorithmic me.
And
who I am.
As more data becomes more data, as we do more with it, we can start doing more with it. That creates more data. Creates more data. As more data becomes more data, as we do more with it, we can start doing more with it. I think we're on the right trajectory that way.
Move the human race forward.
There is so much more information that we have not digitized. So much more information that we're about to take advantage of.
These are real lives that we're capturing. It doesn't get more real than this.
So you subtract out the kitten and start to put together a catalog of everything in the world. More data, more with it, more with it, more data,
me,
more data, more with it, more with it, more data, more data, more with it,
unreliable
data, more data, more with it, more data.
The medical essence of a human being.
The data is there. It's my data.
You don't get to see what they have.
Ask me for it, and I will deliver. Me.
Ecosystem that your bedroom has become.
It knows where you are.
The technology, intimately, it has recorded your every move, every nod, your every breath.
And it has an eye.
More data.
The blanket, the technology, invisibly,
How well I've slept.
communicates this information to your healthcare provider when needed. Community of objects.
You don't own your data.
No problem to make the technology disappear.
The algorithm of me is slightly off.
Yeah.
It's trivial. It's obvious. Maybe just a little bit. It will happen. It's obvious. It's trivial.
Yeah.
Maybe just a little bit. I am going to be in an accident.
People have to trust us.
Maybe just a little bit.
Really unique before you know it about yourself.
Maybe just a little bit.
Really unique.
A marketplace that trades exclusively in behavioral futures.
Okay, so who cares? What's the big deal?
Pretty good chance this is a low-risk person. No chance they're going to commit a violent crime. You know, they may do some shoplifting or maybe some drug possession, but chances are they're going to be fine. So here's another individual, certain to be arrested for something.
Having everything.
I am going to be in an accident.
All of the data.
Please, somebody help me! Somebody's looking at me! Somebody's watching me! Help me! Please help me! Help me! Help me! Help me! Help me! Please!
All of the data.
Help me! Please! Help me!
All of the data.
Somebody's looking at me!
All of the data.
Help me! Please help me!
And that's why I'm saying
Somebody's looking at me! Somebody's watching me! Help me! Please help me!
we just don't have enough data.
Help me! Please!
Maybe just a little bit. I am me. Maybe just a little bit.
More data, more data, more data.
Somebody help me!
Maybe just a little bit.
Somebody's watching!
Data,
Maybe just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit.
more data.
It doesn't get more real than this.
Release the subject on the double.
But we all think we're unique. And we're not.
Yeah.
It's that song is so on the head. That was the first one we got out, 6 months before even the first of the two records came out. We felt the situation with public awareness of data privacy was moving so quickly that we needed to get that track out before too much more happened. There are many aspects of it that hit the nail so on the head with these data privacy issues. It's not funny anymore. And it's not supposed to be funny, and we can't make it funny, but we just got to call it like we see it. So we rushed that one out and made that video first. So that one has been out a year and a half.
We really liked the idea that we were promoting a new album by releasing a single from the album that was going to come out after the new album.
Yeah. We wanted both of the records to basically be joined the public mind for those 30 people who were paying attention.
So then to help promote The World Will Decide, we released a Chrome extension that went with the track Discernment, True False. The first sort of single from The World Will Decide was actually an extension that used a track from the previous record. So,
is that something that could be downloaded from the Negativland website?
Well, you actually download it from the Chrome website itself. It's actually up there, yeah. Programmer and visual artist Dina Kelberman, who we give much praise to. She did an astonishing thing for working with our track. And then we also were able to work with...
Kristen Erickson, a.k.a. Kevin Blechtem.
Creating a set that goes with the track that's from The World Will Decide. That's a track that's all about showing that David Wills, the weatherman's fearful and confused interactions with his various digital assistants in his home. And
I don't even know what a skill set is.
It's something you can install within Alexa to give her extra capacities, extra skills. So I'm unaware of some of the skill sets, but it's just codes that will let Alexa, they fine tune Alexa's responses.
So if I had a Google Dot or Alexa, how would I install that?
You download it from the Amazon website, and then it synchronizes with your Alexa.
And you tell Alexa to play Negativland, and then Alexa does a bunch of confusing things for about, 30 minutes before it stops?
Alexa begins saying some of the things that she says on our album that are terrifying. So essentially, we take Google Chrome and Amazon Alexa are home consumer products that actually exist to spy on you, that you should not under any circumstances be using or allowing on your equipment or in your homes. And we've offered to promote our new album extensions that you can download that will make them more difficult to use.
All right.
That's the joke. Get it?
Naive adopters.
Yes.
Well,
there was also something weirdly, entertainingly grotesque to us to actually do projects where we're actually pointing people to experiment by going to the Chrome site or Amazon.com. So
it seems like promotion, right? Well, we're all complicit. There's no real way out of this world that big data has built for us, and there's no real way. There's no easy way out of. Social media, we all are self-publishing now. One of the themes of this record is that so many of the media literacy, self-defense techniques that we grew up with as means of resistance against big media, like the term culture jamming, which this band is associated with, these were ways to resist the machines of one-way media dissemination. Take their output, take the one-way stream, remix it, and make it so irresistible that big media will be helpless in picking it up and re-injecting it and recirculating it. Like all of these methods of self-defense, of resistance that people our age kind of grew up with thinking of as countercultural have all been assimilated by social media, like self-publishing, basically. Facebook loves it when you use Facebook to criticize Facebook. Google loves it when you download Chrome extensions.
It makes me wonder about if there's in some sort of strange, upside down, backwards way, it almost feels like there's things Negativland was kind of evoking or describing or getting at in our early work that we're kind of now in that world, doing this stuff and cutting up, and so we're now in it, and yet we're still making work. So, what does this work we're doing now mean now?
I'm thinking of it as a form of self-defense, but you really have to be careful to take the antibiotic to its completion, or else you're just in the way.
Right. Yeah, you were thinking about antibiotics. I was thinking it's more like a vaccine.
Yeah. How about that?
These two most recent albums can be thought of as a kind of diptych, but do you have plans for a third, make it a trilogy? Or have you said your piece?
There's more to what we're doing with these things, yes. I'm not sure how much we're ready to reveal.
These two records were originally one record, and then there was so much material that it just sort of like formulated into two steps. But when we played live, the fun thing was taking all of the different samples that had sort of, coalesced into one track and spreading them across the entire concert. Like live, I think there's still a lot of potential to turn these two records more coherently back into one flowing piece. Like the radio show, like all of the different elements can like spread out.
Hopefully, maybe a year from now, I don't know, we can actually perform again. And there's just been, we could see when we were touring a year ago in Europe, we were just touring right after True False had come out, and we had plans to be touring on 2020 and into 2021. And I think what we were exploring, because we don't treat any of our recorded works with any respect. It's just more raw material for us to continue to rework and rethink. So it's what John was getting at, is that there was all these new ways that the work was kind of speaking to us, that we could make it converse with itself in whole new ways, and change that up every night and from night to night in what we were doing. We got a glimpse of the potential of that when we were touring Europe a year ago. And hopefully we will eventually return to this, and we'll be able to, kind of resume that conversation with our own material. Yeah. Also, we've been working with this incredibly wonderful and inspiring live visual artist, Sue C., who was going to be continuing to tour with us, and we hope we'll be able to whenever we resume.
Tell us more about Sue C.
Well, she was one of the first people to use jitter. In fact, she was essentially the in-house beta tester of it back when it was being written by Kit Clayton. And so she's worked with Luke Ferrari and Morton Subotnick and AGF and a number of people. And she took a couple of years off to raise two kids. But we kept in touch with her. Letitia Tsunami, she's also done quite a bit with Letitia. And Letitia mentioned casually, like, Sue kind of wants to work again. So we lucked out. The timing was right. And we're trying to figure out how to do live streaming in a way that isn't inherently a lie, where like all of the latencies involved can actually be turned to advantage and say something about the world we've all been forced into. And hopefully that can be productive instead of poisonous. But we'll just see.
Also, what was great about working with Sue and her wonderful husband, my entire life, I've gone on a Negativland tour where we never argued once, not once. It was remarkable. So very good.
Also felt like something was wrong.
Yeah, it was like something's wrong. No, we had it really, at least for me, I'm prone to terrible, terrible, crushing anxiety when it comes to performing and touring and stuff. But I had a really nice time and was looking forward to continuing to do this. So
someday we can return, but in the meantime, keep those studio lights on or turn them off and keep working in the dark.
Flickering candlelight.
Congratulations on your new album, Carl. Your new album. If we had another 15 minutes, we could talk about that. But it's so weird how you made a pop album, like almost simply by virtue of having the tracks, like, shorter.
That's all you have to do. Just make them shorter, and then get on AM radio.
Yeah,
and these are all my radio mixes. You should hear my album mixes.
They're all radio edits, but anyway, no, it's a total pleasure.
Well, thank you very much. Well, your album's great too. So here we are, mutually admiring each other. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Carl.
Gotta go. Bye now.
Bye.